Africa Good Morning keeps you abreast with the latest happenings across the continent and beyond every weekday morning. My name is Aina Raizakweyo and I will be your host for this morning. In today's broadcast, 9 in 10 top global companies are failing to uphold human rights, and this is according to a report. Netanyahu says close to eliminating Hamas as troops' casualties mount. And Tropical Cyclone Freddy is the longest tropical cyclone on record at 36 days. Well, you can follow all our programs on our website, which is called oneup2.com, or DSTV 285 or GoTV 25 in Namibia. Arrie Hougaard will also join us later on in the show to give us the news that are making headlines in South Africa. We will be right back.
E-Ticket, your online ticket solution for events and event marketing, bringing you ease of mind and making sure that your event gets out there. For more information, contact events@nhom.com.na.
In our top stories this morning, 9 in 10 top global companies are failing to uphold human rights. This is according to a report. More than 90% of the world's 2,000 most influential companies, including Amazon, BMW, Nestle, Rio Tinto, Pfizer, Shein, and Standard Chartered, are failing to meet the societal expectation towards human rights, working conditions, and corporate ethics, a first-of-its-kind assessment has found. Despite commanding revenues equal to 45% of the global economy, the world's top companies are missing the opportunity to positively affect the lives of hundreds of million people, the non-profit World Benchmarking Alliance said in a report released on Tuesday. The companies have resources and influence equivalent to some of the biggest countries, impacting more than the population of many nations. The fact that 90% of these companies are failing to act on fundamental societal expectations shows the state of play of the private sector, said Namit Agarwal, social transformation lead at the WBA, which track companies' commitment to UN Sustainable Development Goals. Just as the world could significantly aid governments in eradicating poverty, reducing inequality, and ensuring access to decent work for all, regulation, guidance, and external pressure are necessary to steer businesses in the right direction, Agarwal added. Now moving over to our next story. Netanyahu says he is close to eliminating Hamas as troop casualties mount. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claimed on Monday that he was close to eliminating Hamas, the ruler of the war-ravaged Gaza Strip. Netanyahu has repeatedly said that the fighting will only stop with the defeat of the resistance group, but he was contradicted by his army spokesperson, who recently called the elimination Hamas an impossibility. I returned yesterday from a tour of the Gaza division. I saw a great achievement of fighting that is being carried out in Rafah. We are nearing the end of the elimination phase of Hamas terrorist army. There will be a continuation of hitting its remnants, said Netanyahu while speaking to cadet soldiers. Opposition to the war among the Israeli public has been growing. The army has only rescued a handful of hostages after 9 months of fighting amid mounting soldier casualties. In our next story, Tropical Cyclone Freddy is the longest tropical cyclone on record at 36 days. The World Meteorological Organization has declared Tropical Cyclone Freddy to be the longest-lasting tropical cyclone on record at 36 days. Freddy crossed the Indian Ocean basin, starting off the coast of northwest Australia and reached southern Africa in February and March 2023. It caused major human and economic losses in the worst affected countries. Freddy crossed the Indian Ocean basin in February to March 2023. Madagascar, the southeastern African, bore brunt of human and economic losses. Monitoring the extreme increases understanding of weather and climate impacts, a WMO International Committee of Experts working under the auspices of the Weather and Climate Extreme Archives conducted a detailed analysis and verification of a distance and duration. In our next story, bionic leg helps amputee walk using a mind control. A high-tech prosthetic leg enables amputees to walk naturally and at normal speed without consciously thinking about it, a study suggests. Developed by scientists at the Institute of Technology, the bionic leg links the user's brain activity to nerves in important muscles controlling movement. Study author Prof. Hare said the results of the small trial were quite miraculous and could influence the way prosthetic limbs are constructed in the future, but there are years of development work. The years of development work still needs to be carried out before it can be used by more patients. There are lots of limitations to the way current artificial limbs are able to move, says the researcher in Nature Medicine. Their quest was to test whether new technology could make walking with a leg amputation below the knee more natural. Normally, during amputation, muscles are wrapped up to create softer padding for maximum comfort when using an artificial leg, but this means control of the nerves and natural leg movement are lost. With the new technology, surgery to reconnect vital pairs of muscles on the leg stump is needed first, either during the amputation or later on. Then, using sensors on these muscles, signals are sent to a robotic controller, which helps the prosthetic leg calculate how much to bend the ankle and how much power to deliver when walking. And in our final story, Comoros President Assoumani gives son the government job. Comoros President Azali Assoumani has put his son Noor El-Fa in charge of coordinating government affairs as he reshuffled his cabinet following a tense January election that his opponents allege was tainted by voter fraud. One person was killed and at least 25 injured in a violent protest in the country, a group of 3 island off the coast of Mozambique, after the election body declared Assoumani re-elected to his fourth fifth-year term. Political analyst, opposition leader and local media said Assoumani appeared to be preparing El-Fa a 40-year-old with a background in finance and who has worked as a senior economic advisor to the president since 2019 to replace him. Al-Somani announced his cabinet later on Monday. He made Ibrahim Mohamed Abdul Razaku Finance Minister, Said Omar Hamadu Justice Minister, and reappointed Yusufa Mohamed Ali as a Defense Minister. And on that note, after the short commercial break, we will bring you Arrie Hougaard, who is going to update us on what is happening in South Africa.
My Zone presents My Zone Schools Esports Competition.
Still possibilities.
Round 1, 3, 2, 1.
We have 50 minutes to go. Caution.
Yeah, no surprise there. That was always going to be a booking.
From deep three-point range, Green with the
Join us on the 27th of July at the MTC Innovation Hub for an action-packed day of esports excitement.
Right now, it's time for us to cross over to South Africa, where Arrie Hougaard has the news on the ground. Good morning, Arrie. How are you doing?
Yes, very good morning. It's nice to talk to you. Lots happening in South Africa. I suppose lots happening in Namibia as well, all over the world.
There's a lot happening everywhere. But to touch on South Africa, with a new cabinet in place, Arrie, South Africans look on anxiously if different parties can work together in the new government that is called the National Unity, Government of National Unity. Please tell us a little bit about that government and how South Africans are feeling overall.
Yes, it's more positive, excited. It's a new season for South Africa, obviously, and a new season for all in charge. So the word that is used often now in South Africa is reaching consensus, and that is the test now. Obviously, when you have a majority, it's easier to govern, like the ANC had since 1994. But now it's a consensus that needs to be reached. There's a government of national unity. The big topic was reaching or putting together a cabinet, and that's President Ramaphosa shaking hands with John Steenhuisen of the DA. So those are the two biggest, the parties with the most votes. The ANC got 40% of the national vote, the DA 22%. So what happened in the last week was there was tense negotiations to get the cabinet in place. So 32 ministers had to be announced. So that was the big news. The ANC have 20 of those cabinet positions. The important ones to mention is finance, electricity, health, police, and trade and industry, just to mention a few. And so the DA were asking for 11 at one stage, but they got 6 positions. And that will be in agriculture, home affairs, and basic education, to mention 3 of the 6. So it's a big cabinet. The cabinet is the 32 ministers plus the president and the vice president. And then also there's 43 deputy ministers as well. So that's a national executive, and that's the 75 of them. That's the biggest amount of that ever. And there were lots of criticisms before also for former President Jacob Zuma's cabinet. He had 35 ministers. And the DA were actually canvassing last year to say that we only need 15 in South Africa to save about 5 billion rand a year. But now they're part of a bigger one. But that is just the way it is at the moment. I think the reality is that South Africans need to work together on that level. There's been a few challenges. There's still challenges regionally. In Gauteng, there's a big challenge for that region to find consensus in electing the executives. But all in all, it is time for South Africa to take hands. So obviously you have the government of national unity. And then on the other side, you've got a group that will say they will be the official opposition, so to speak. And that is, they will put lots of pressure on the process. That is the EFF and Kento Sizwe Party and also Action SA. That's needed. There needs to be good accountability across the board. But at least one positive is that they did find consensus, so that is good for South Africans. So we're holding our breath a little bit, but it seems like there's positives on the road.
All right, Arrie, that is good to hear. Now, South Africa's National Treasury is confident that South Africa can exit a global dirty money watch list by early next year. How so?
I think it's obviously a global challenge, money laundering and money finding ways to be clean, so to speak. That's what money laundering means. It is dirty money getting into a system, and on the other side, it looks like it's clean money. But it's, South Africa were put on that list. It is the Financial Action Task Force. It is the international task force represented, they accepted worldwide. It's based in Paris. So they put South Africa on the dirty list last year. They gave 22 action points for South Africa to address. 8 of them have been addressed. 14 still need to be addressed by February next year, hopefully to be off the list by middle of next year. Money laundering, just quickly, is one of the components, and also proliferating financing, they call it. That is when you use money for things like nuclear and biological or chemical warfare, stuff like that. But in South Africa, the biggest challenge is more gold smugglers that find a way through South African banks to get their money clean, get dirty money through the process, and also through real estate and cryptocurrencies, etc. So there's been a watch on that for South Africa. So they're putting systems in place to make sure that people don't find ways to get the dirty money into the process. So hopefully that will be cleaned by next year. There's good things happening in the economy at the moment, better things. Actually, the petrol price also went down today. It's about 95 cents, 99 cents for the petrol and 24 cents for diesel. So there is positives happening at the moment. That's obviously linked in a big way to the oil price, crude oil price, and the rand dollar. But the rand has been steady at about the mid 1850s, 1870s at the moment. Obviously, everybody was nervous about the elections, but it seems to be stabilizing.
Okay, the education system in South Africa remains under pressure as South Africa welcomes a new Minister of Basic Education. You briefly touched on that in your first story. Perhaps you could expand.
Yes, it is the new Minister of Education. She's actually from the DA, the Democratic Alliance, so that is the Viwe Gwaruba. And a bit of criticism there. She doesn't have no training or experience in education, actually, but she's been in the system for government quite a bit. The challenge for her is just the inequalities in the education at the moment, and also infrastructure challenges, especially in the rural areas. South Africa's got 22,000 public schools, so it's a lot of schools, a massive budget of about 324 billion South African rand annually. So she got an increase of about 3%, a bigger budget to address that. And the biggest problem is infrastructure, the schools. That is the minister that will be in charge, and her challenge will be to have children from an early age into a system that works for all the children. There's a high volume of children at the age of 9 that cannot read, up to 75% is the estimate. So especially in some rural areas, that is a problem. But it is inequalities. Some children in brilliant schools, some children really in challenging schools in terms of facilities and infrastructure and the upkeep of that. So hopefully that will be addressed. And that is the foundation of South Africa and Namibia, that your education system needs to be strong. There's work to be done, but hopefully that she can get the support of everyone.
I definitely do agree. Now, South Africa looks to create a solar manufacturing capacity and aims to create 25,000 new jobs. Tell us about this.
Yes, it is a brave estimate by the government, but what happened was, to achieve that, is that the import duty was pushed up by 10%. That is instituted on solar panels and on cells and on models. That is on the manufacturing of that. So the government hopes that that will create more job opportunities for companies that manufacture that rather in South Africa. At the moment, it's China that supplies 80% of all these solar panels globally. So they're a big supplier to South Africa as well. So it's a 10% that import that is put on that. That will put a little bit of pressure on BRICS, I suppose, that relationship South Africa do have with China there as well. but that is business. So they hope to have 15 billion coming into the economy. So that's what the government aim. Some of the experts say from the Energy System Support Group, they say that, well, it seems positive, but the fear is that all these people will just add 10% to the cost of installation. So hopefully that will not happen. And hopefully it will be that South Africa can create that manufacturing capabilities. But it is green energy is the big word in South Africa and globally. So South Africa needs to increase the solar panels in South Africa and also wind panels or wind energy. So hopefully that will work, but they want to create more jobs by that. So we've got a lot of sun, like Namibia, so hopefully there's enough panels to put out there to help the electricity. We didn't have, just to close off, we didn't have any challenges with electricity and load shedding for a long time now, almost 2 months now plus. So it seems like they're sorting that out. So it's a strange life for us. We're not used to that. We're used to candles and all those things. But all of a sudden, it's looking better. So hopefully it will keep turning.
And now it will definitely continue to be better. Arrie, thank you very much for joining us on Africa Good Morning and bringing us these stories from South Africa.
Yes, always a big pleasure to talk, and blessings for everyone and a great day. Bye-bye.
All right, on that note, we will return with our economic news shortly. In our economic news this morning, Mozambique to pay $220 million debt to end tuna bond saga. Mozambique agreed to pay creditors including VTB Capital PLC and Blanco Commercial Portuguese SA $220 million in a settlement that formed part of the nation's decade-old tuna bond scandal that ended in default. The claim from the lender had grown to $1.4 billion as interest continued to accrue, the Finance Ministry and Attorney General said in a joint statement on Monday. The deal follows similar ones with a group of creditors, including UBS Group AG's credit source last year. The settlement have removed $2.3 billion in loans from state accounts, according to a statement. Mozambique is now unconditionally open to the market, according to a statement. Its government is committed to strengthening the governance agenda and structural fiscal reforms. And in our final economic story, the Central African Republic's 3 million children are the world's most deprived, with widespread malnutrition, inadequate healthcare access, and instability putting the country at high risk of a humanitarian crisis, UNICEF said on Tuesday. Half of the country's children do not have access to healthcare services, and almost 40% of them suffer from chronic malnutrition, the UN Children Agency said. Few have access to clean water, sanitation, or healthy diets, with global attention focused on the war in Gaza and other conflicts. The plight of the African nation children has become painfully invisible. Relano Arana, UNICEF representative in the Central African Republic, told reporters in Geneva. After the break, we will be right back. Please do stay with us.
My Zone presents My Zone Schools Esports Competition.
Still possibilities.
Round 1, 3, 2, 1.
We have 50 minutes to go. Caution.
Yeah, no surprise there. That was always going to be a booking.
From deep three-point range, Green with the
Join us on the 27th of July at the MTC Innovation Hub for an action-packed day of esports excitement.
Before we say goodbye, let's look at the highlights. 9 in 10 top global companies are failing to uphold human rights, and this is according to a report. Netanyahu says they are close to eliminating Hamas as troop casualties mount. Tropical Cyclone Freddy is the longest tropical cyclone on record at 36 days. And with that, we've come to the end of today's program. Please do make sure to watch all our programs on oneup2.com or DSTV 285 or GoTV 25 in Namibia. My name is Aina Raizakweyo, and this has been Africa Good Morning.